It's another Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague. My guest this week is James Hipkin from Innately. That's INN, the number 8, ly.com. And James, I got to give you a special shout out because I have a number in my domain at Avenue 9 as well. So we'll decide which one is one better in their current marketing by the end of the show. But we're going to talk this week about helping small and medium-sized businesses design websites that accomplish what they're trying to do, get past their marketing plateaus and pitfalls through this AI world, and really figure out how to create some marketing that resonates with the audience and connects with human beings. So James, I wanted to start with you there. You've been in marketing for a long time, and I feel like every time a new technology comes out, whether it's internet, social, email, we go to spam first and we forget that good marketing strategy is about connecting with humans. Would you agree?
I so agree. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Mike, because one of my soapboxes is this concept of inside out marketing versus outside in marketing. And outside in marketing is human marketing. And
Okay,
so I think we have a lot in common. But what I see when I'm auditing marketing campaigns, when I'm auditing websites, helping business owners, the problem isn't their copy. The problem isn't the images. The problem isn't the website per se. What I see most often is an absence of strategy. People, I mean, they're really good at their business. They're really good at understanding their product, their service, whatever world they're playing in, but that doesn't make them good at marketing.
I agree. Even if they're good storytellers as CEOs and founders, sometimes the sales techniques needed for growing your business are different than the marketing strategies you need to take it to the next level.
Exactly right. And, and I'm in no way disparaging what's gotten them to be a successful to date, but the world is changing all around them. Another common problem I see, and it's the same problem, the absence of strategy, but a different manifestation of it. Their marketing program was built to talk to boomers. Millennials are not the same. They don't think about things the same way. Boomers, the internet was this awesome thing that came about in their lifetime. Millennials have had the internet from day one. They have a very different attitude towards this. And if your marketing programs are designed to attract and convert boomers, much of the things that you're doing are actually going to repel millennials.
Well, let's dive into this because we haven't talked about this on the podcast yet. And I don't know, we're approaching 50 episodes or something. And I think as a Gen Xer myself is how I associate. I'm a cusper on the lower end towards the millennials, but I consider myself a Gen Xer because when I was a kid, I was the remote control for my father. I had to get up and change it. I remember and grew up and experienced that world. And I relate mostly to those types of things, but I see what you're talking about because I think a lot of websites and a lot of boomers I hear like, I want the talk to a human button. I want somebody to pick up the phone and call me. The role of marketing is to make the phone ring, and the role of sales is to answer the phone. And I feel like, especially with millennials, younger millennials and Gen Z, their goal is to not be on the phone.
No, they don't.
It's to get rid of that entire part of the sales process. And so that's a completely different structure of being, video first versus text messages versus phone calls or emails. As I'm a Gen Xer, I still love email. Shoot me an email anytime, and I'll answer it for sure.
We've done some email programs that have gotten 80+% open rates. Email works very hard still. The thing with the millennials is because they grew up with the internet, they're very comfortable doing their own research.
Mm.
They're going to be checking out all kinds of different things and different resources and comparisons and reviews, and they're going to do all of that way before they're ever going to want to talk to someone. It's a very different approach. The case study I like to quote when I'm talking about this, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the social media platform called Hootsuite?
Yeah.
Okay. They had been very successful. They were annual recurring revenue in the $100 million range, et cetera, but they'd stalled. They were stuck. They hadn't really moved out of that zone for years. So when in doubt, fire the CEO, bring someone new in. So they brought in a new CEO, and what she did was she looked at their marketing and she went, we're talking to boomers. Our audience are millennials. And she completely shifted from an inside out marketing strategy where the whole marketing program was, standing on their rooftop, shouting at the world at large about how awesome they were, to an outside in marketing program that understood who their avatar was, that understood the journey that they took in the decision-making process, and then provided the content and the resources at each stage of the journey to support what they were trying to accomplish. And this was all done digitally. It was done with their digital marketing. It was done with their website. It was a wholesale change in the way they were doing things. And Mike, you know what the results were?
Yeah.
They went from their plateaued $100 million to almost $400 million in less than 2 years.
Wow. I think a lot of people are missing this, and I always kind of describe it a little bit differently. So I'm fascinated by your outside in analogy, because I think you're right. Telling your story and what it's about and feature and benefit selling kind of works just well enough for people to keep doing it, and it works well enough to get to certain plateaus. And you can even say the same thing about your analogy with the boomers. It's like that probably did work for a while until boomers start leaving the marketplace,
right.
and they stop being the purchasing agent or the
right, because they've gotten to a point in their life where they have everything that they need. And it's one of those weird things, right? Most of the wealth in the country is controlled by boomers, but they don't need to buy anything more.
Yeah.
So
I think that kind of happens with businesses as well, that small businesses reach this sort of plateau where, like you said, the DIY marketing, the talking about ourselves, getting our story and our messaging straight are key foundational concepts to get you to 7 figures. But then we need to set up some marketing systems to reach people who are not like us, people who are strangers and don't know about us. And so I find a lot of companies work, I use the opposite of your analogy, so I hope that people don't, this doesn't mess them up. But they work from the inside out as like, I want referrals and my customers, and I'm just gonna, work this inside network of people that know us. And then if I can hit some networking events or reach out on social media and kind of get to a next level bubble, and they kind of try to grow their marketing that way. And it can work for creating the messaging and the foundation of stuff. But what it's missing is, what I'm hearing is, you're outside in.
Right.
Is we're not creating messages for those strangers, those people that have no idea about us. They don't know our values. They don't know anybody that does business with us. They've never heard of us before, and they're a completely different market.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not discounting the importance of customers and the pieces that you're talking about. They're also very important. In fact, when we're helping clients shift to this outside in platform, we start with helping them understand their customers. Because and not just their customers writ large, for most businesses, 80% of their revenue is coming from 20% of their customers.
Right.
The specific ratio will be different. I did a study with a large bank that will remain nameless. We showed them that like 80% of their revenue was coming from about 2% of their customers. Thank you for e-checking. Right?
Yeah.
And I've done this work with, brands like Visa and, large banks and et cetera. This is a truism. So when you do your research, when you do your investigations, you want to do it with that 20%. Because if you can build your avatar and your journey map around the needs of the 20%, then your outside in marketing is going to be designed to attract more people like those people. And the thing is about the 20%, they're likely heavy category users. They're knowledgeable, they're experienced, they understand your product, they understand the competitive offers. They need to be spoken to in a different way than the great unwashed.
Now, this may take us to the AI part of our discussion here, because I think one of the most powerful things about generative AI is that it can speak, those different languages. It can speak to those different personas, and it can take your messaging that you built for the inside and rewrite it for the outside, right? Is that how you're using it?
Well, it's several. Yes. I mean, the power of automated chatbots. Chatbots have a bad reputation. And it's a classic example of it's not a technology problem, it's a strategy problem. Adding a chatbot to a website's easy, right? It's a little bit of JavaScript, you stick it in the footer, you stick it in the header, and you're good to go. But millennials don't want to talk to people. They want to do their research, and they're more than happy to talk to a chatbot if the chatbot can give them the information that they're looking for.
Right.
And that's where tying the chatbot as an interface to an extremely well-trained, AI assistant, that suddenly you're taking a strategic view on the technology, and you're using it strategically, and you're designing it to talk to your best prospect in words and language that they understand.
Yeah, what I heard there again is that really interesting message that I see so many people miss is that they'll set up their chatbot to set more appointments for them on their calendar, or
right.
The message is like, "Thank you for your question. Please call this number and talk to customer service." And you're like,
right.
Wait, what? I could have just called that right away if I wanted to. The whole reason to have a chatbot,
exactly,
so that I don't have to call customer service.
Exactly. And the thing is that you can also extend this idea out into your social media marketing. For example, there's a platform called ManyChat. ManyChat has a reasonable AI built into it, but you can also connect ManyChat to an AI assistant using, make.com or N8N. So that ManyChat can facilitate a conversation in a direct message on Instagram. But it's about facilitating the conversation and bringing value to the person you're chatting with, not pressuring them into making a conversion. When I worked in loyalty marketing, I did a large program for a telecommunications company. It was a $2 billion base of business. And, I remember this conversation, walked into the director of marketing's office. We just won the assignment. I was an EVP at an agency in Chicago. And I said, and he said, so what's the plan? And I said, well, first and foremost, you're spending too much money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, you could have knocked him off his chair with a feather. Right? And he said, I have never in my entire career had an agency person walk into my office and tell me I'm spending too much money.
Yeah, that's perfect.
You know, and we had the conversation about the best customers, the 80-20. And I said, you're spending all this money on the 80% that don't care. And all the marketing in the world is not going to change someone's need state. If they don't need what you're doing, or it's not really important to them, they're not going to even see the marketing you're sending. It's just noise. But the 20%, they do care. And it does matter. We need to find those people. We need to develop programs for them, and we need to focus our advertising and marketing against that group.
And tell me how you're doing it these days in 2025 with the marketing stage advantage or other like.
Well, the key thing, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, understanding your avatar and understanding your journey map. When I was managing multi-8-figure budgets, we had the resources to be able to go out and hire a researcher who would do focus groups and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they would do a really good job of developing an avatar and a buyer's journey map. And that's one of the ways that big brands differentiate themselves from smaller businesses, because they've got the resources to do these things. Well, this is my expertise. And I partnered with a colleague of mine who does this kind of work. She does the $50,000 studies for brands. And she, much to my wife's amazement, people who've worked with me like me and keep coming back. So she and I partnered to develop an interview guide, because another one of those old saws, those axioms that everybody rolls their eyes when you say garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
AI is an amplifier. It's a force multiplier when it's used properly. But if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. That's a principle. And it's just not, AI is not changing that. So we put most of our energy into developing an interview guide that our clients can use to interview 8 to 10 of their best customers, record those interviews, and then we built an AI, trained it, tested it, added all of the necessary background knowledge around the psychology and psychographics. And, Susan was very important in choosing all of this. And then the AI analyzes the transcripts from those interviews that were generated from this interview guide and generates a very effective and clear customer avatar and buyer's journey map. What it also does is it generates an organized, categorized list of customer quotes, so that we know how people talk about these things. We know the way they phrase their questions. We just did this work for a Midwest regional bank that's been a client for 10 years. We built their original website 10 years ago, and we're in the process of redesigning their website for this year. And the first thing I said to them is, you need to understand, we had the conversation about boomers versus millennials, et cetera. The work that Marketing Sage Advantage was able to generate for a very reasonable cost, I mean, it just blew their minds. And they are literally, driving all of the creative decision-making process around how the website's going to be built. But it's also, they are shifting how their support people are being trained, how their branch people are being trained. It has had a huge impact, because they just literally had no idea that what their competitive advantage was against these big banks, and it was sitting right there.
Yeah, I've been doing similar type of work for my clients, and it's amazing. I think that people don't quite realize the high level consultant that you can get. A lot of people think about using AI as a entry level marketing, intern. Hey, go write this copy for me and come back and bring it back, which is great. But there is also this high level consultant, deep research and understanding your persona and your strategy that you're mentioning here that I've seen recently be very good because some founders can do this. Some great salespeople can tell you what they hear from their buyers, what their true pains are, what their fears, worries, concerns, their trigger events are. But usually that's through their own filter. There's a lot of bias that comes through that. You got to do a lot of market research to figure it out. But now, basically, I guess the way I would describe it is AI has done all of that market research against all the conversations that exist on the internet. You can now say, what is somebody like this most likely to say? What are their leading indicators that they're coming into market for my product or service? What are their buying criteria? What are the competitors' key differentiators? Where's there a hole in the market that I could fill that I'm best positioned to fill? How is my company better and different than everybody else out there? And I think this leads to a big gap that small businesses haven't been doing. Like you said, bigger businesses and good agencies, I wouldn't even say the average marketing agency, but good agencies were doing, but very, very few people spending very long outside of their original business plan on this type of stuff.
Right. Exactly. And it's the old dad joke for small business guys. I've never met a dad joke I can't embrace. About the two guys in the woods with the bear, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you. And it's the same for small business owners. They don't need to compete with the big national budgets. They just need to be a little bit better than their local competition, and they're going to do just fine. And
I think that's the power of AI and fractional help and agencies now is that, 2 years ago, you had to hire a big expensive agency or a lot of people on your team in order to have the bandwidth and resources to do this type of work. And now you don't. That's a big shift. That's a big competitive advantage that's available to these first moving small business owners.
Yeah, but you've made a very important point here, Mike, that I want to underline for folks who are listening. You still need that fractional help. You still need that strategic understanding, because if AI is going to be a force multiplier, it needs to be given the proper direction. What I call the magic button AI folks.
Right.
That's what's generating all of the dreck and generic slop that you're seeing on platforms like LinkedIn and et cetera. It's the magic button people.
Yeah, 100%. It's not there. In order to create great marketing with AI, I always say, you need three things. You need great source material and understanding of what business you're in. You need a great marketer with expertise. And then you also need somebody to review all of this and execute it. Right. And the strategy doesn't work by itself without the execution, and the execution and strategy don't work without the business understanding.
Exactly. And you'll notice when I was talking about Marketing Sage Advantage, we put probably 70% of our energy into developing the interview guide. Yeah. And then, since we knew we had high quality content coming in, then we could put the other 30% of our energy into refining the AI model. Building it initially was fairly straightforward. Refining it, tweaking the system instructions, what, knowledge files are we adding to it, et cetera. But that was being done with assets that were of high quality. Yeah. And it was being done by two marketers with, 40 plus years of experience doing this for major brands. that.
And then when that report comes out, you actually have to use the advice too. You
Well,
can't
and
just
that's
go,
the other
oh,
piece
that was
of it.
interesting, and shake it off.
When we were building this thing, we knew how it was going to be used. So we were crafting it in a way so that the assets that were coming out would actually be useful. That's why, for example, we pull out the, themed customer quotes, because copywriters love that stuff, because they want to be able to, because if you can talk in the consumer's language and be authentic, if they're in market, suddenly they're going to go, oh, yeah, that's me. I wonder what they have to say.
Oh, that's exactly it. I always say that if you can tell the customer story better than they can tell it themselves, you'll get the business. I also would say, as somebody that's built over 200 websites in my career, getting website copy from a business owner is probably the hardest part of designing a website. But we'll leave that conversation for another day, because I want to ask you a couple of questions about the future before we let you go and get some of your sage advice on the future from somebody that has significant experience in the past here and previous disruptions. Before we do that, though, I wanted to give everybody a chance to hit it. I'll put all these links in the show notes and stuff, but innately.com is your website. It's INN8LY.com. And then if you put marketing-sage-advantage, you can find the tool that we've been talking about. You can also just reach out to James and talk with him. It's VIPchatwithjames.com. It'll give you a link to his calendar, or connect on LinkedIn and stuff, and we'll figure out how to keep the conversation going. But
we also have a pretty URL, marketingsageadvantage.com, that will redirect to the landing page on innately.com. So that might be easier for people to remember than, where do I put the hyphen and the rest of it? So marketingsageadvantage.com will send you to the sales landing page, and we'll explain more about it. But I would love to chat with people, because I learn so much when I listen to business owners talking about their business and understand, what they're wrestling with and the obstacles that they're facing. It's very valuable.
If you had to make one prediction for the future of marketing in the next 10, 15 years, based on your experience of 30 or 40 years doing it in the previous disruptions you've seen, what would it be? What would you tell people to pay attention to?
Well, a couple things. You see this a lot. AI is going to take my job. I don't think AI is going to take your job. I think somebody who uses AI in a smart way is going to take your job. Okay. So just like I remember when the internet came on and everybody said, well, this is a flash in the pan. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You need to embrace this. You need to understand it. You need to figure out how to make this work for you. Same thing with AI. I really recommend that you embrace it, you understand it, but recognize that an AI is a extremely intelligent intern who knows nothing. Mm-hmm. When I work with people about prompting, the first thing I talk to them about is context. You've got to give the AI context, because it's very smart and it wants to please. It will give you an answer.
Right.
But if you need a quality answer, you need to give it the context. Again, Marketing Sage Advantage, we put 60%, 70% of our energy into the interview guide.
Yeah. Get that good stuff out. Yeah. And then if you had to make one prediction, and this can be aspirational too, what you would like humanity to look like. If we went 30 years out, and let's say there's true artificial super intelligence or something, what do you think the world looks like? What does humanity look like 30 years from now?
Well, I hope it looks better than it does these days, but I'm pathologically optimistic. America has gone through many ups and downs over its history, and for the most part, there have been more ups than downs. So I'm optimistic that we will continue to move forward, that we will continue to create a society and an economy that benefits everyone. And it's one of my underlying philosophies when it comes to marketing. Really effective marketing creates value for the customer, and then the customer will create value for the business. And if you try to flip those things around, you've got bro marketing, and that's just, it may work in the short term, it may work tactically, but it's not a long-term strategy. So my optimistic hope for the future is that we will build an economy and a society where, everybody can find their spot and can bring value.
I like that. You made me think of two common mistakes I think humans make. One is that there's always going to be some bad finish line. There's an apocalypse coming, the Y2K virus or the Mayan calendar. There's always some sort of like end point in a bad way. And then I think optimistic people even think that there's some end point in a good way, that if we just get industrial machines, if we just get factory farming, if we just get to space and the moon, if we just get to the internet, if we just get to super AGI, then we'll have like cured all of human ails. And I don't think either one is true. I think what you said about progress is a really great way to think about it, is that we'll all continue to make progress.
Well, and it's funny, when I talk to folks about marketing, I often use the three-legged stool as a analogy or a metaphor. I can never remember which one means what, but the three-legged stool has four parts. The seat is the objective. Yeah. Do you have an objective? A lot of businesses don't. Surprisingly. Well, yeah, we need sales. That's not an objective. That's a hope.
Yeah.
So you need an objective. And then the first leg is the strategy, which is the how, the who, and the why. Right? The second leg is the plan, which is the how and the when. And the third leg, bringing this back to your comment, is measurement. You need to understand what's working and what's not working. And progress comes from measurement. Progress comes from understanding objectively what's working and what's not. And that's, again, a lot of times business owners don't have a clear, smart objective. And a lot of they're not using measurement properly. And you end up with a wobbly stool that, you can kind of support yourself on, but not very effectively.
Yeah, I think if you you can't use AI necessarily to set your objective. You can maybe help brainstorm it, but you can certainly use AI on those other three legs of the stool to help make them sturdier and build those things faster and stuff as we go. So I think that's a great mic drop moment there, James. So I'll just ask you one last question, which is, how can we help you, or how can you help us?
Well, I think we can all help each other if we're transparent and honest and authentic. It's
100%.
None of us are perfect. Well, my wife is perfect, but the rest of us are flawed. And, that, just embrace that. I have this conversation with clients all the time. No, you don't need to spend a fortune on a photographer, but you do need real photographs of real people, right?
Yeah.
It's some of the stuff is simple. It's just don't just be honest and be authentic.
I love it. Good stuff. Again, you can find James Hipkin at innately.com. You can go to VIP Chat with James or the marketingsageadvantage.com to find the tool that he has built. James, thanks for being on the podcast and taking time to chat with us today.
Mike, it's been a pleasure.
And until next time, if you want to find out more about Avenue 9, what we're doing to help interview founders, top salespeople, your best clients to create the context and context engineering to make your marketing better. And just like James said, multiply your authenticity with AI and automation to get that exponential advantage over your competition. Go to avenue9.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Mike Montague. Until next time, have fun. Keep going, everybody.